welcome to Casuals of Runeterra Book Club. I'm your host, Ryan, and I've brought a special guest back since we have completed the book. Today we're doing final thoughts along with Hetch.
I made it. Yeah, and boy, have I got some final thoughts because, like, first and foremost, you did a wonderful job with the book club. I was hooked.
Thank you.
I'm a little bummed that there's not more of it, but that just means we can look forward to the next book club when we get a chance to do it.
Yeah.
But man, they did such a great job as far as like translating the Ruination into a book and giving us a prologue story that didn't completely suck. So let's go.
Yeah, let's talk a bit about the third part. So for our listeners, we're gonna skip housekeeping. I know it's rare, right? But this is just
It's not up top.
What
do I do?
This is an episode where Hatch and I just kind of shoot the shit, and I get to see his thoughts on everything and how it went down. And where we left off, if you listen to like the last 0.5 episode, was we're at the island now, right? We're at Helia. We're getting to see the inner workings of it. We're getting to see the politics of Helia and watch things play out with the characters that we have. So you have Erla Grail, you have Rise, you have Callista as your main points of narrative, and then the characters around them and how they're getting to their end goal and what that ultimate result is.
And of course, like we mentioned, like the bigger players as far as the books, but at this point, that's also where we have Hecarim and Viego arriving with a very dead Isolde. But
Very dead.
Like as far as like the arrival, like it's something that I really enjoyed because there was actually like a good bit of preamble as well as still some back and forth as far as just relations between Helia and Callista, mainly Callista, but you know, I guess like Helia and Camivore, if you want to get really technical. Like there's a lot of preamble before it goes into conflict. And as someone who has been following the lore for a long time, that's very different than what Callista's lore used to be. Because, like, you know, spoilers for people who didn't know Callista's old lore.
For any of our time travelers.
Yeah. Like it was not as detailed as what the Ruination book gives, which is honestly very refreshing because it gives a lot more depth, not only to Callista as a character, but also to that story as a whole. Because her old lore was just like they arrived on the beaches and then she just died immediately. Like they just came in with all guns a-blazing, and there was no like any form of parlay or communications between the two entities. So this was so much better to have that nuance of like, yes, you are a kingdom, we are a kingdom. Can we come to terms?
Yeah, that communication element was something I enjoyed because at this point in the story, and I mentioned throughout the book club episodes how much I like Callista till the very end, because Anthony did a great job, like a first name basis. Anthony Reynolds did a great job of humanizing her, especially at her age range, which is something I bring up over and over again of how young she is, because for her age, her position as a warrior is very impressive. Her position and her socio position in the environment that she operates in Camivore as a leader on the military front, like that is impressive for her age. But when it comes to the interpersonal interactions on the diplomatic side, she fumbles. That's not her expertise. That's not what she's good at. She mentioned she's not good at that. And this is the one of the most important moments of diplomacy where she fails. And she fails hard. And it's not in the sense that everything happens at once, like you mentioned. It's the sense that she's given so many places diplomatically to find a way out. Like there's these doors that are just open. And as she's just closing them one by one, until ultimately we get to the violence.
Yeah, and I think like the inexperience with the diplomacy and everything is what does a good job of reminding you of how young she is,
Mhm.
because like it her command like even in this build up to the violence, like you can Anthony Reynolds does a great job of making the respect that she commands out of the immortal guard like it's palatable, right? Like
Yeah,
you can really feel that like these guys would follow her to hell and back.
yeah.
And
The host.
that's that's something that you can only get like through respect and for most people through a lot of time. And she's done it in a very short amount of time. So it's like, how do you balance that out? Oh, she's got to fumble the ball in every other aspect when it comes to, because it's
Yeah,
not only that she's fumbling the ball when it comes to her interactions with Helia, because she was already fighting an uphill battle. I think
yeah,
that like someone with a lot of experience probably couldn't smooth things over with Helia given the opportunity, right?
yeah,
Because like that, it was already a big blunder because she brought like armed guards and a king with her. Like that's the exact thing they didn't want to happen.
yeah,
But she also was burning bridges with everyone else in Camivore outside of her host. Like because like she burning the bridge with Hecarim, she burns the bridge with Viego. Like the moment that it's like, you know what, I'm sick and tired of this. My guys aren't going to help you with this. We're getting out of here. And like so, like it was a lot of things that needed to be delicate, and she just got overwhelmed. And it makes
yeah.
sense. It makes sense.
It's a lot, especially when you have the more experienced players all against you, right? Hecarim is against you. Nuno, we find out, is against her wishes. Viego's obviously biased in making this happen.
Mhm.
So she really doesn't have anybody in her corner outside of Venix being kind of in her corner, but more in a escapist way. Like she's
Yeah.
like, hey, let's just leave and not deal with this anymore.
Right.
Um,
And she also has Ladros in her corner, but like Ladros is common born. Like he's not going
yeah,
to have any experience in this game either. So as far as her team's concerned, she is the most veteran member and she's, in wood tier. So
yeah,
she was fighting an uphill battle as far as the diplomacy side of things.
yeah,
And like the Nunez or Nuno,
yeah.
like
Nuno
sorry.
Esprit, yeah.
Yeah,
Nunez. I was like, wait a minute. New
sorry,
character just entered.
sorry. I'm a Liverpool fan.
Yeah, yeah,
The Nuno betrayal, like, it definitely hurts because it's like like pointing out that everyone in her corner, she's the most veteran member.
Mhm.
Like Nuno was the guy that she needed.
Yeah,
She needed Nuno's support. If there was any hope to be able to smooth things over without bloodshed, or at least minimal bloodshed. So like once that betrayal was set in stone, it's like, okay, this is where we're going.
yeah, and it's such a setup for if we didn't know what the ending was, right, to this whole ordeal. It's one of those setups where an author could get away with a slap on the wrist as far as her learning a lesson, right? Something bad could happen, but not being irreversible. Where we know the Ruination is the ultimate failure. It changed the route of history for Runeterra, but it destroyed everything, right? It ruined everything. This isn't a minor fuck up. This is the fuck up.
Yep. I like we're talking global scale
Yeah.
fuck up because like this is where like there are regions of the far east of what used to be Camivore, which is now like the Shari or like goes into the Shariman Empire later on. Um, like there far eastern reaches of it that are affected by what comes out of the Shadow Isles. The Bilgewater Isles have never been the same after this. Like we're talking about like this is like closer to like your Chernobyl
Yeah.
event. Like, there's because Chernobyl now is like 30 years ago, and
Yeah.
there's still areas of Russia that are inaccessible to human beings just because of nuclear fallout.
Mhm.
Like that's what happened to Runeterra as far as the Ruination. So you have to have the consequences be felt. And shout out to Anthony Reynolds as far as not trying to go with a slap on the wrist or anything. He really did a great job of, hammering home just how much things are going to change for everyone, regardless of if they were there, or aware of what was going on or not.
Yeah, and this takes us to now, like you mentioned, the escalation of violence. Those scenes, right? The
Oh,
actual battle, the reveal that the Iron Order was following them, and that Nuno was able to lower the mist to let them in, and they wreaked havoc.
yep. Oh man, but at least before, like the full havoc was being wreaked, we get some baller scenes as far as like we love to talk about like a lot of the short stories, or in this case the book, where they do a good job of translating how a character plays in League of Legends
Mhm.
into the action of the story. And I was not ready for the representation of how Callista is played. And it was just a very subtle nod to how she's played, because dramatically speaking, in the game League of Legends, it's nothing that you really think about,
Yeah.
because yeah, she's just a ranged carry. But boy, when you put it in story mode and you really like hammer that home, it was great. Just spear. And she's just mowing
Yeah.
people down. I was like, yes, pop off, queen.
It
Um,
it was a moment to allow her to shine despite all of the political failures. It was like, well, this is what she's good at, and she knows she can do this until she's dead, and that's what she'll do. She'll do the best she can with the best tool she has.
yeah,
And that's why I like that scene a lot. Was like you said, her host, they knew what their fate was. She knew what her fate was, and she knew her fate was her fault.
yep.
And
And,
ultimately, the way that's handled, I think, is very well done.
and I do really appreciate it, because like, it does kind of help you like still enjoy Callista's character, at least like Callista as a
Yes.
human.
Yeah.
You can still enjoy her character because she doesn't change throughout any of it. Like, because I think like as far as a very human in reaction to all those things going wrong, like someone could just like break down and just give up.
Yeah.
But Callista doesn't at any point, like she is trusting that the host is going to stay with her. And then she's like, you know what? I'm just going to stay here. I'm going to fight until my last breath, in the hopes that that Phoenix and Rise can get as many people out of here as possible. Like, at least
Yeah.
for all of like the, the innocents, that like, try to get as much of the innocent bystanders out of this war zone as possible. And I'm going to take as many of the Iron Guard as I can with me. And like that's Callista. That's what we liked about Callista as far as like the start of the book. And she doesn't change from that, which is very nice to see. And we also get, like some subtle slaps across Hecarim's face, which is nice, because he's an asshole. Like
Yeah.
you want him to get those slaps across the face. So like the humbling that he has to go through of
Yeah.
watching Callista mow his dudes down, before he's finally like, okay, we'll treat them as real. As a real army. We're
Yeah.
not going to treat them as just less than us because they weren't born in a higher standing in life.
Yeah,
Like,
there's great
like we,
commentary there. And the point that allows everyone to that Anthony Reynolds is able to maintain is she has, and Venix mentions this before as well, is that she has integrity, right? And her integrity, when bad things happen or things like mischievous things happen, it's not purely her fault in the sense that she planned on that happening. It's just her naive side is what allows things to take a turn for the worst. But integrity wise, she's always trying to move towards a proper goal, or what most people could look at as, okay, I can see why she's doing this. It's just she doesn't have the control that she thinks she has. And through to death, she maintains that integrity, which allows us as readers to really still be committed to liking her. She doesn't do anything to say, "Oh, you wanted this to happen." There's no point where you have that thought. Whereas someone will mention down the line, Rise is a very interesting. Him being interested him being introduced in the book at all was a huge surprise. Him playing the role he played was an even bigger one. And his
Yes.
character arc to where we now know him gets so much value from this book that no one would have known on the face,
Yes,
right?
and it also gives, it gives very tangible answers to the questions that we would have as far as like how the ruination like came to be at all,
Mhm.
right? Because all we knew about the ruination was Viego's bio being introduced as a champion, and that he was involved with the ruination because of Isolde's death
Mhm.
and the waters of the Blessed Isles and Isolde's death caused the ruination. But that's all we had, right? So then the fact that we get the reveal that the waters are just a byproduct of a world rune that's here. Okay, that's the juice that you would need to
Yeah.
be able to have like such a cataclysmic event as a ruination to even be possible. But well, like, okay, if that's the juice that we need someone that knows something about runes. Bam, Rise. It really gave like the missing puzzle pieces to put that picture together. And the fact that Anthony Reynolds is able to give us Rise's role and make it so pivotal
Yeah.
because like, I mean, who knows how different this could have been
Yeah.
if Rise wasn't there, because would Ehrlich have been able to find the blessed waters? Like, would Ehrlich have been able to get into the room even if he found it without Rise's help? And then it's like, okay, if even if they couldn't get in right away, like Camivore brought the whole damn army, you're probably still gonna fall. But how long would it have taken for them to get in?
Yep.
So would it have got to a point where they would have just given up? Because like we did get one of the little cameos that I really enjoyed was the uh oh God, why am I blanking on names right now?
What do they
Ah,
do?
the no the our shovel boy.
Our
Why am
shovel?
I
Oh,
blanking?
Yorick.
Yeah, thank
Yeah.
you. Yeah,
Yeah.
so like
You
it
get a
was a
young
little bit of a
Yorick.
yeah, it was a little cameo, right?
Yeah.
But we do get to see a young Yorick, and with his cameo though, it gives a little bit of that glimmer of hope that Viego is coming to terms with the fact that Isolde is actually dead.
Yeah.
Um, so if Rise wasn't present, and even if the Helia falls and Camivore takes over the Blessed Isles, would enough of the time of trying to open those seals give Viego the time to actually come to terms with his own grief and heal?
Yeah.
It
Exactly.
could be a very different story. But no, Rise is there, and that's why we get all this to happen.
Yeah,
Um,
and that takes us to the next point that I wanted to bring up was the corruption of the well. What'd you think? That to me,
oh,
yeah, I don't want to influence what you're about to
dude,
say. So go ahead, you go first.
that is such a wonderful like representation of it. It was such a good job. I love the fact that we get a bit of like the overlap as far as like because we covered a lot of like the comics with the Sentinels of Light.
Yeah.
So a lot of the imagery of especially like Isolde coming out of the well and attacking Viego, a lot of that imagery matches up with the content that they've already given us. So that was really cool. But the fact that like she's actually dragging Viego into the well, and then like we get this description of where it's like essentially like a bottomless pit, like
Hmm.
all that stuff. It was like we do get like a little bit of extra depth onto it, so that felt really nice too to have. But then just from there going into the immediate release of the Ruination was so satisfying. Did a great job because, again, like, I brought up like the Chernobyl disaster. Like, this is more like a gigantic nuclear event. As far as for the world of Runeterra,
Yeah.
and he did not pull punches as far as describing it that way, because like even Ehrlich is just like, I gotta go, already dead,
Yeah,
game over.
the theme of the loop of sanctity consuming and destroying and the well restoring, and what that would do in the premise of a rune is like, okay, that was perfect. Because you, like you said, you have all the pieces. How do you put it together? Like sanctity is one of the most popular weapons known in the game that has a name, right? We
Yep.
know what runes are. And also, we know about the Well of Ages and it essentially being from any fantasy element when you look at the, what is it, the Well of Youth or any
Yep.
version of that. Uh, so to take all those elements and be like, this would be how you build enough energy to change the world, right? In a
It
moment.
was perfect.
Yeah.
It was perfect. And like, it also just like, it does a great job of giving that imagery too, because of the fact that, like, you're going down into this bottomless well and constantly dying and coming back.
Yeah.
Like, it was just like, oh, this is chef's kiss. Like,
It's a scene that has to be
and
animated. You have to animate this because
it has to be
like the
animated.
water turning into like a black sludge and then a black mist appearing as it's just so, as far as the way it's written and paced and set up, I had no problem getting a perfect image in my mind of this happening like in an anime-esque style in my mind, right? And that was what made it so exciting. It gave me goosebumps as I read it. It was I don't see you doing it better.
Yeah. No, I really don't. Like, he knocked this one out of the park.
Yeah.
It was perfect. Um and again, like, all of that, the descriptions given as far as like that constant death and rebirth is also how a chain reaction and
Yep.
nuclear bomb works. So
Yep.
it's like, yeah, like this is the perfect way to describe that event. Um so
Shout out to
like
Oppenheimer. Go see the movie.
yeah, go see the movie.
Not shout out to Oppenheimer himself. No, we're not. I want to be clear. The movie's great. The
Movie's great.
actions, no.
Go see Barbieheimer. All right.
Oppenheimer.
Now as far as like the because like right before like we actually get the Ruination blast,
Yeah.
right? So we have like Callista like does actually fall to like Hecarim.
Yeah.
And again, like, this is something that I did enjoy because it really like hammered home that like her story is better now too,
Yeah.
because before, it was they land on the beaches of the Blessed Isles, she gets stabbed in the back by all of the army and is just dead immediately, and then her corpse, like her spirit, is just so angry that like
Yeah.
the Ruination keeps her alive, right? um but that's just not who she is as a person. That's also not who she was as a leader. So it was very nice to just have like Hecarim be the one to strike her down, like solo, and just like that, perfect. um and then so like I did really enjoy that. And then, like, just one little more tidbit, I also loved the fact that like after that, like Hecarim is running away from an basically already dead Ladros, which is just chef's kiss because Ladros has been a Chad throughout all of this.
Yeah.
So
Straight out of Game
like,
of Thrones scene. Straight out.
oh yeah, straight out of Game of Thrones scenes. But that's just the little tidbit
Yeah.
I want to throw in there, because now we have to get off of the island because the Ruination is bad.
Yeah, and the whole blast scene of Rise describing it coming towards them and destroying everything, and then how he already hit it out of the park when he showed how the well got corrupted, but even to the point of how the subsequent blast interacts with the Wall of Mist, and the fact that, oh, the black mist is the hallowed mist that used to protect the isle, now plagues it like blight. And I'm like, dude, this shit is too good.
It's so good. It's so good. Like,
It feels so good not to have a midichlorian situation happen. Like that's going for our generation and the generation before. That's something we're going to try to avoid in media forever in perpetuity.
yes.
So to see
Yeah,
him just clear the bar is like, thank you, Anthony. Thank you.
and not just clear the bar, but like you put it all together in a way to where you don't have, like, we don't have to sit here and try to explain to you how
Yeah.
it works. Like
You
if
get
you
it.
go read the book, you will get it, because it just makes sense, in the same way that like the actual cataclysm for the Ruination just makes sense.
Yeah.
It's perfect. He did a great job with it. But I do really enjoy the fact that, like, we get to see that there was some forms of life that actually survived the Ruination, because that is something that we didn't have before the book, right? Like before the book, it was just like all forms of life just disappeared.
Yeah.
Like that's what happened with the Ruination. It just, all life was gone. But it's not only nice to like have some survivors because of getting to be able to tell us the story of the escape, and like the first impressions of now the Shadow Isle champions. uh but it's also refreshing to have, because it actually gives an explanation to some of the other big organizations that we have, like Jindakaya, like opening up the doors to the Sentinels of Light
Yep.
and becoming the first Sentinel.
Yeah.
Because like we already had a lot of fun of like the it's Hellion technology that actually created the weapons of the Sentinels of Light. But Jindakaya as a character is a badass.
Yeah. She's
So it was great to see the first Sentinel being the first Sentinel.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we also get to have like Rise, helping them get to, the ships and getting out of there, which is again a great nod to how he plays in game. But like, it's the first time he does it too, because he's like looking over, like, you have to trust me.
Yeah, and Rise is one of the most important characters in the game, being an OG character, but also being our main mage, right? And knowing how important magic is to Runeterra's history, knowing that he was near the beginnings of magic in Runeterra's history, and knowing how different he was from how different he is now. So essentially, this kind of moves us to the end, where Ruination happens, they get off the island, all that action, the action set pieces happen, and we get that last glimpse of Callista essentially losing herself, which is, it's great because this would be something hard to live with in Afterlife, because now she would have to live forever, right? Knowing that she fucked up and then being able to see it and being trapped here eternally. But because of how the Ruination works and how the Black Mist works, that anger that's been bubbling from the beginning is now a physical manifestation that's going to change her and slowly erode her memory until she becomes just a wraith. And ultimately you're like, holy shit. Like, so she couldn't live with this. No human could live on with this memory of what they played a part in. And he takes that away from her in a kind of depressing way, because she is losing herself and Ladros hasn't yet. So he has to watch her lose herself. But ultimately, we don't get away from the responsibility of what happened, because the person that has to live with it is Rise. He's still alive and he played a major part in it. And he talks about, that's why we end the story with Rise looking and trying to wrap it around his mind, his part in all this, and where to go next. Because everyone has their own plan on what they need to do to solve this, but his is directly involved with causing it. Venix didn't cause this, Jendakai didn't cause this, Tyrus didn't cause this. Rise did cause this.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Rise gave all the pieces necessary for this to begin.
For
like,
selfish
the only
reasons.
thing,
Yeah.
and the only thing he didn't do was push the final button.
Yep.
That's the only thing he didn't do. But he unlocked the door. He opened the protective case that's on the button after unlocking the door, and then looked around and said, "Well, don't push it." So like he none of this is possible without him. But like one of the beautiful things as far as like with Callista's change here too is like, like I pointed out, her original bio does not go nearly in
Yeah,
depth. And but with the original bio, the reason that she had all the spears in her back is because the entire host betrayed her and killed her,
that's a cool scene too.
which now we don't have, right? Because the host was very loyal to her. She was a great leader. So how do you get all those spears in the back? It is the process of her losing her humanity and becoming a wraith.
Yeah,
And it was every single betrayal that she thought of was a new spear added into her back. And it was a wonderful scene because it was like the first thing that she did once she realized that she was dead, but she was still present, and Runeterra was like, how do I fix
yeah,
this? So you had to have like all of that scene come together for her to not be a spirit that's trying to fix it. So like they did such a good job as far as like translating that. Um and then as far as like, a shout outs to some of the, characters that didn't play, have their hands directly in the cookie jar. Like, like Ladros's story is so enjoyable.
yeah.
It's so enjoyable now that I'm almost not pissed about his card. Keyword almost.
Almost.
If you play Ladros, I hate you. But but then like, like his story is just so bittersweet because he gets to watch his love die
Yeah, it's
twice.
a tragic, tragic
Um,
love story.
yeah, so great little tragic love story there. But then we also get characters like big shout out to Phoenix. Like Phoenix at no point of this story is Phoenix not just a badass.
Yeah,
Like
Phoenix is great, man. It's at first I felt like, 'cause I mentioned it in early episodes, right? It felt like a buddy cop thing, but she plays so much more of a role because although she makes fun of Callista for being a goody two shoes and having integrity, she too does have her own form of integrity, especially for essentially being a pirate captain, right? Yeah, she's
no,
kind of commissioned by Camivore in a way, but she plays by her own rules, and her crew to her is a parallel to the host to Callista, right? They'll
yep.
follow her
And
to the ends of the earth.
yeah, and you can't deny that sense of integrity because of the fact that once crap starts hitting the fan, like the moment that you see the Camavorans fighting against each other,
Yeah.
any privateer or a merc for hire, when they see their employer fighting amongst themselves, is just going to throw in the towel and cut
Yeah.
their losses because it's like anyone that's using their brain at that point, it's like, what am I going to stay here and potentially get killed or get my whole crew killed
Yeah.
for the chance of getting a little bit more money? And that's again the chance, because depending on who wins, they may not even want to pay me. Or do I just cut my losses and get the hell out of here? And she didn't do that. She stayed, and then like she stayed long enough to listen to Callista of like, hey, can you get as many people out of here as you can? She's like, yeah, bet I will.
And with a theme
Like,
that's common too with the life, because this is the first, I mean, her being Vestayan and also being a major Vestayan in history at this point, that's openly Vestayan, right? It's very rare. Uh, the fact that she does care enough to do any of this because she's going to live a long life, right? She has lived a long life up to this point, and then with her and Jendakai becoming partners as she begins the Sentinel of Lights, and her describing that relationship and her sticking around even though Jendakai is getting old and being poisoned with her missions back and forth. She's going on those missions with her as long as she can. Like that type of integrity for a creature that has that type of lifespan is very rare in most fantasy.
yeah. And but it like Anthony Reynolds does a great job of using that as a tool to kind of show like how the world is reacting
Yeah.
to this this new threat to Runeterra, because again it's a threat to Runeterra. Like
Yeah.
if you're too close to it, you noticed it already, like because the people of Bilgewater, like now that's everyday life for
Yeah.
them. And so the fact that like again you didn't leave when crap hit the fan,
Yeah.
and then when you thought that crap hit the fan and it turned out that that was just the first ensemble before the shit hits a fan, you still decide to stay and help after that
Yeah.
happens. Like, at no point is Phoenix not a badass. Like, what a really cool character. And I would love to see either Phoenix or Jindakaya like added into the game. Like I think Phoenix would be like a better fit for the game. Because like with Jindakaya, I don't know if like
Yeah, they'll
we have so
probably
many
introduce
sentinels
Phoenix.
that yeah, we have so many Sentinels of Light too that are like present day. It would be weird to add in the first Sentinel of Light, right? But
Yeah, and
like I think that you could do a really cool thing as far as like having Phoenix added into the game. Um like either, as her Sentinel of Light form or like, expanding upon what happens to Phoenix after, Jindakaya moves on to the next life. And Phoenix is probably, I'm assuming Phoenix is going to be the one to take up the mantle of like the leader, the Sentinels of Light.
yeah, or even just in the background and facilitating, the order, because that's one thing Jendakaya mentions is that her resolve has created an idea, and we all know it's easy to kill a person, it's hard to kill an idea. And the idea of the Sentinels of Light have become perpetual. So Venix could just be a supporting structure to that. And in the current time frame, I mean, she can still be young, Vestayan wise, and also with the hustle and bustle of Bilgewater, where she would probably feel more comfortable and still be fairly close to
Yeah.
Sharima.
Uh,
I could see her just
I
hanging out in the background, low key, just playing it safe, doing
I
things
mean
here and there.
not even just like, in Bilgewater, but probably like with the Buru people. Like
Yeah,
and
yeah, I could see
not
that. Yeah,
like
that's actually a good
because
point.
like she wanted to dip and run with the Buru,
Yeah,
like take Callista with her. So not only could it be like that, but it could also be a thing where she could kind of be more like a figurehead, like Morgana
yes,
is to magic users in Demacia, where it's like a lot of people don't believe that there's a Vestayan on this island that is facilitating the Sentinels of Light from the
yeah.
shadows. But if you know, you know.
And with
And
her
like I
character,
feel
yeah,
like that could be a story you could do.
yeah, with her character design, I think Venix would do very well
Yeah.
with
Oh,
a
could
certain
you imagine?
community.
Yeah.
Because you get to listen, we have love for our furries, and you get to have the great design, you get to have the culture of Buru, Camavorian, and Bilgewater mixed into one, and then you have that background story that connects her to so many things that the community of League of Legends players would eat that up, and it would be justified. It wouldn't be manufactured. It's taken so long to get to this point in the first place to justify her existence as a champion.
Yeah. Like I think that would be like, the avenue to take.
And
And
she carries
then,
a
like
massive
her
two-handed scimitar. Let's
yes.
go.
Uh Not only that, like I think like you make her like, as, a melee character with a two-handed scimitar, but then her ultimate is using the Sentinels of Light weapon, like the
The
first one that
hammer.
she got.
Yeah.
Yeah, the
Oh,
hammer, the first one that
yeah.
she got
Or the
from
cannon.
Jindakaya.
Yeah.
Yeah, the cannon, to have that be her ultimate. So then it's just like every time you use the ultimate, shoot you bastard.
Yeah, that would be so good. It's even kind of like an homage to Jinx's ult, right? How she pulls up.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, listen, Riot, once again, we're just giving this shit away.
Yeah, podcastcore@gmail.com, right?
So we've talked at length about this. And I think the final thing I want to say before the big reveal I promised Hetch to get him to come on this episode of the
Oh
show.
no.
I've been holding information back from him for months. But Rise, I'm going to go back and finish up with Rise because this is, at the beginning of this, you could have never told me, first of all, Rise was involved with the Ruination. But the fact that he is the spiritual continuation of Callista's goal to fix things, like for him to have that connection with her, and that he even says that is that they are so connected in all this happening where he doesn't give away any of his blame and any of his participation in it. He understands his role was as big as hers. And he also wished he knew her better because her resonance in the people around her that he now interacts with, he knows will make him want to be better and never be the person he was when this happened. So when we look at the Ruination going into the Rune Wars, going into, I won't spoil his relationship and how that breaks down with Tyrus, and we see the person he's become and how focused and uh steadfast in his mission to solve all this, if it has to be only him, and not losing sight of that regardless of not really having a religious attachment. It's just that motivation alone, it's understood, and it makes sense for an OG guy who's like a big character. He's not on the box, but he's up there when it comes to how important he is.
Yeah, and it's you have to have all those pieces there to really, put into scope like just how important his mission is too, because the if you don't have all those pieces together, any human being is just going to like hit a point where enough is enough,
Yeah.
right? And so it's nice to see as far as just like a very believable motivation.
Yeah.
Like it's not a motivation that feels forced at all. Like this, it feels very real. It's very palatable, and I like it. Like there's one of the reasons that like we love these stories too is because like these are the characters that make up the world, right? So the fact that Rise is playing one of the most important parts of the world, because like sure you can argue that like the Kale Morgana conflict
Yeah.
and the importance that it has for the shaping of Demacia, or the the like the banding of all of the big players of Noxus coming together
Yeah.
to take down Borm Darkwill, and how that shapes Noxus. Like, yeah, there's a lot of really big important things happening, but if the runes get into the wrong hands, everyone's dead. None of that crap is going to matter if the runes get into the wrong hands.
Yeah.
So you need to have like a story and like these different things that come together that really shape who Rise is in present day. Like they need to be good pieces to build that foundation. And boy almighty, is this like a wonderful foundation to build off of. Because I like you can feel it. You can feel just how much remorse Rise has for his own actions. The fact that he refuses to
Rise also young.
him.
We also mentioned that older than Callista, but still young.
Still young.
Or I think they're about the same age, because there's a point where he hit on her and all that stuff. But
yeah, I mean, like they're close enough in age. Yeah. They're close enough in age to where Rise is still young.
Yeah.
Right. And the fact that like even despite his youth at the point that this is happening, that like he is setting up new standards for himself and refusing to try to like remove any kind of blame from himself there, like shows like a high level of maturity. And even if like you don't feel it through Rise's own words, you get to feel it with the change of Callista, because Callista was doing the same thing before the anger took her over. Before she became a Wraith, her last thoughts were the same as Rise. Yep. So, which really hammered home just how much Rise is feeling it, because the only reason Callista's not feeling it anymore is because of the Black Mist and the Ruination.
All right. So with that, at the end, we had the foreword or the acknowledgments from Anthony Reynolds, and he talks about how he was able to pull this off. And he thanks, all the narrative people, your John O'Brien's, your Graham McNeil, everyone that helped him keep this narrative cohesive and get across the finish line. And when you have help like that, come on, you're talking about one of the most prolific Warhammer writers and also one of the writers from Avatar: The Last Airbender. You're going to get it right? With those people in your corner.
Oh, yeah.
But he mentioned something that I don't think Hetch knew, and I didn't want to tell him. Anthony Reynolds, not only a Warhammer fan, also an OG Shaco player. He's an OG Shaco man. Now, our listeners who can't see, Hetch is upset. And if you listen to our episodes, you understand why. He is a brother of mine. He's a kin. We run in the same pack.
How could I enjoy a story so much by someone who is so sick? Y'all need help. You don't need praise. need help.
I thought you would enjoy that. So it's been hard to be tight-lipped about it. But as Hetch lets that absorb, thanks again. I've already said it at the end of the episode. I mean, the book club episodes took us about, I mean, ultimately, a bit over a year to get out. Yeah. But the book was good. The journey was good. It was a good bit of work. I'm happy it's at its end. I'm sad that it's at its end. But also, I'm happy I was able to put it out there because now you guys have it. And if you don't have time to read it, most people, and Hetch mentioned, speak up. Like when we ask you to comment on things, we really want to know what you want to hear, if you want to hear more of something, because that's how that started. We stopped at some point where it was like, okay, we've done the first part. Like it. If you want to keep reading, go read it. And someone was like, hey, where's the rest? And that's all it took because we wanted to know as well. So, yeah, thanks for reaching out.
And again, if this is like the kind of content that you enjoy, because especially like you're doing like the short stories and stuff, those are episodes that we do really love to put together. But like we also did some of the comics too.
Check those out.
If you enjoy that content, let us know because there's more of it. There's a lot of content.
There's another book
that we're excited to cover, and there's another book. So if you enjoyed covering the Ruination, going along this journey with Ryan and every now and then me, let us know because there's more. We can do it if it's something that you enjoy. So that's podcastcore@gmail.com. Just let us know what you're interested in because we're interested in all of it. So you could just kind of help us be focused on a goal, and we will enjoy it together.
And we'll be honest about the timeline.
We will be honest about the timeline.
Just like Callista, we'll have integrity until the end. And with that, thanks for listening. And we'll be back soon with the next episode.
Take care, everybody.